Hi, it's that fantasy chick. Welcome back. It's another week, another stream, and we're going to be talking about another episode of Loki this week, last week's episode of Loki. But before we get to that, we're going to be talking about Daredevil and all the changes it's been going through. So, of course, I have an article, I think from the Hollywood Reporter. Let me see. Um, yep, the Hollywood Reporter. Okay. Daredevil hits reset button as Marvel overhauls its TV business. Launched during the pandemic with a playbook to shoot $150 million plus seasons with no pilots, the Disney unit is undergoing growing pains and seeing the logic of traditional TV culture. It didn't take long to see the problem after Marvel's Studios' Daredevil Born Again paused production in mid-June during the writer's strike. Fewer than half of the series' 18 episodes had been shot, but it was enough for Marvel executives, including Chief Kevin Feige, to review the footage and come away with a clear-eyed assessment: the show wasn't working. Ooh. So in late September, Marvel quietly let go of head writers Chris Ord and Matt Corman, and also released the directors for the remainder of the season as part of a significant creative reboot of the series, the Hollywood Reporter has learned. The studio is now on the hunt for new writers and directors for the project, which stars Charlie Cox as Matt Murdock, a blind lawyer turned superhero. The Daredevil revamp is the latest in a series of growing pains for Marvel Television. Since debuting this Emmy winning WandaVision in January 2021, the studio, which dominated the film industry in the 2010s, has released more than 50 hours of TV programming after creating a small screen division from the ground up during the pandemic. Through it all, the company eschewed the traditional TV making model. It didn't commission pilots, but instead shot entire $150 million plus seasons of TV on the fly. It didn't hire showrunners, but instead depended on film executives to run its series. Maybe that's a problem. And as Marvel does for its movies, it relied on post production and reshoots to fix what wasn't working. That's just not what you do with TV. Even though they remain, along with Star Wars titles, the most watched shows on Disney Plus, Marvel series have recently faced a number of creative challenges and cries of diminishing returns from critics and audience metrics, causing a major shift at the studio to move to make TV shows the more traditional way. We're trying to marry the Marvel culture with the traditional television culture, says Brad Winderbaum, Marvel's head of streaming television and animation. It comes down to how can we tell stories in television that honor what's so great about the source material? With Daredevil's new direction, Marvel hopes to right the ship on a project with sky high expectations. The show is Marvel's first to feature a hero who already had a successful series on Netflix running 3 seasons. But sources say that Corman and Ord crafted a legal procedural that did not resemble the Netflix version, known for its action and violence. Why would you do that? Why would you do that? You know, people were going in expecting the Netflix Daredevil. They love the Netflix Daredevil. They wanted the Netflix Daredevil. Lord. Cox didn't even show up in costume until the fourth episode. He was in She-Hulk in costume. Come on. Marvel, after greenlighting the concept, found itself needing to rethink the original intention of the show. Marvel plans to keep some scenes and episodes, though other serialized elements will be injected, with Corman and Ord becoming executive producers on the 2-season series. Daredevil is far from the first Marvel series to undergo drastic behind the scenes changes. Those who work with Marvel on the TV side have complained of a lack of central vision that has, according to sources, begun to afflict the studio shows with creative differences and tension. TV is a writer driven medium, says one insider familiar with the Marvel process. Marvel is a Marvel driven medium. On the Oscar Isaac star Moon Knight, show creator and writer Jeremy Slater quit and director Mohammed Diab took the reins. Jessica Gao developed and wrote She-Hulk, Attorney at Law, but was sidelined once director Kat Coiro came on board. Production was challenging with COVID hitting cast and crew, and Gao was brought back to oversee production, a typical showrunner duty, but it was the rare Marvel head writer who has such oversight. Even though the company does not have a writer's first approach to TV, directors could feel shortchanged as well. The whole fix it and post attitude makes it feel like a director doesn't matter sometimes, says one person familiar with the process. As it shows ramps up as its shows ramped up during the pandemic, Marvel stepped outside its usual staffing approach and brought in outside execs after years of internally promoting creatives who had been sufficiently trained in the Marvel method. This change was felt most severely on Secret Invasion, the Samuel L. Jackson led thriller that stands as Marvel's worst reviewed series. Cal Bradstreet, a writer and executive producer on USA Network's Emmy winner Mr. Robot, had been working on the scripts for Secret Invasion for about a year when he was abruptly replaced after Marvel decided on a different direction. Enter new writer Brian Tucker, who penned the crime thriller Broken City. Thomas Basucha, who helmed the thriller Let Him Go, and Ali Salim, who worked on Hulu's 9/11 drama The Looming Tower, were on board as directors and to help crack the story. Okay, I've never seen Mr. Robot, but I've heard of it. And I think I would have been more excited for a series written by someone from Mr. Robot than what we got. Somebody who had been working on scripts for a whole year, then to be replaced at the last minute, I don't know. So far, so normal, at least by Marvel's creative development standards. Details are murky, but what happened next in the summer of 2022 debilitated the production as factions became entrenched, and leaders vied for supremacy during Secret Invasion's pre-production in London. It was weeks of people not getting along, and it erupted, says an insider. Marvel declined to directly comment on the matter. The company dispatched Jonathan Schwartz, a senior executive and member of Marvel's creative steering committee known as the Parliament, to get Secret Invasion back on track when it was falling behind schedule and on the verge of losing some actors because of other commitments. By early September, a good portion of the Invasion team had been replaced with new line producers, unit production managers, and assistant directors. And Basucha, who was supposed to direct 3 episodes, left the show because of new scheduling conflicts. The Marvel executive overseeing the show, Chris Gary, was reassigned, and according to sources, is expected to depart Marvel when his contract is up at the end of the year. As it moves forward, Marvel is making concrete changes in how it makes TV. It now has plans to hire showrunners. Whoop-de-doo. Cal's post-production work on She-Hulk helped Marvel see that it would be helpful for its shows to have a creative through line from start to finish. Stop trying to recreate the wheel, people. It's like, I hate to say, I mean, this is the method that all of TV use for a reason. And just don't go, well, film works this way. Film and TV are different animals. You can't work TV like film. It's just not, it's not going to work, and it hasn't been working apparently. It's a term we've not only grown comfortable with but also learned to embrace, says Winderbaum of showrunners and Marvel TV's intention to hire them. The studio also plans on having full-time TV execs rather than having executives straddle both television and film. We need executives that are dedicated to this medium, that are going to focus on streaming, focus on television, says Winderbaum, because they are two different forms. It also is revamping its development process. Showrunners will write pilots and show Bibles. My goodness, you did not have show Bibles? The days of Marvel shooting an entire series from She-Hulk to Secret Invasion, then looking at what's working and what's not, are done. Oh my goodness. And just as Loki, which returned October 5th, marked Marvel's first season 2 of a series out of 9 TV shows to date, the studio plans on leaning into the idea of multi-season serialized TV, stepping away from the limited series format that has defined it. Marvel wants to create shows that run several seasons where characters can take time to develop relationships with the audience rather than feeling as if they are there as a setup for a big crossover event. Some of its next shows, in fact, promise to be more personal stories. Echo, which premieres in January, is a grounded crime story with few visual effects revolving around deaf Native American anti-hero Maya Lopez. Alaqua Cox. Wonder Man, a show that was paused because of the writers and actors strike, is meant to be a behind-the-scenes look at Hollywood and a character study of Simon Williams. Yahya Abdul Mateen II, a superhero who has a side gig as an actor and stunt person. Yahya. Winderbaum says he wants people to watch the shows because they love the characters. It should work, he says, beyond the fact that it ties into other projects, or if they are going to be in a movie, or if it is setting up an Avengers film. I mean, so much. So much of what this article was saying was common sense. Like, every other TV show has showrunners, so we're going to have showrunners now. You should have been had showrunners. But okay. You didn't like the Netflix Daredevil show? I love the Netflix Daredevil show. The Netflix Daredevil show was really good. Secret Invasion is one of the biggest crimes in streaming history. I'll take anything over what we got. I don't blame Marvel for trying to do something different, though. But yeah, we suffered for it. I do blame them. I blame them because what they did was they didn't replace order with order. They placed order with chaos, because Fixing it in post is not order. That's chaos. That also takes away the whole, because like in TV and in film, there's the, you have, who the auteur is. In film, the auteur is the director. In TV, the auteur is the show. This is the showrunner, the head writer. It's it's writer driven. Film is director driven. These are the people who are in control of the vision and of the thing, who drives the vision, who drives the narrative of the show. And they just took away completely. There is no auteur. There's no director auteur. There's no writer auteur. There's just nothing. There's just fix it and post. There's nobody who's holding the vision of the show. And then they expected it to come together and still be great. Somebody needed to hold the vision. And they were like, oh, when somebody was in control of the vision, it worked better. Well, go figure. Because that's how it's been going all along. So yes, I still blame them. I blame them harshly for what they did. I think Wonder Man gonna be Yaya, one of my favorite actors. I like Yaya. I liked him a lot when I saw him in what's that show? That HBO show. Why can't I think of the name? You know what I'm trying to say? The HBO show where he was the Manhattan, Dr. Manhattan. That show. I liked him in that. I don't think I've seen the Netflix Daredevil. Honestly, I'm gonna check it out. Oh, then what other Netflix show? There has been no other Daredevil show. There's been the Daredevil movie that I have not seen with Ben Affleck. Other than the Ben Affleck movie, there has been no other Daredevil show. There's just been the Netflix Daredevil show. That's the only thing. That's the only Netflix. And then he showed up in the Spider-Man movie and he showed up in She-Hulk. But outside of his little guest appearances, he's only had one show. But it's the best. Watchmen. Yes. Yes. Because I remember him from Aquaman. And because he was playing the Manta or Mantis or whatever it was. Manta. I didn't like him in that because, he's playing the villain. But when he was in Watchmen, I liked him in Watchmen. He was very, let's say, talented. I don't know. I've seen some of Daredevil stuff, and I just remember it being bad. You must be talking about the Ben Affleck Daredevil. 'Cause I haven't seen it, but people say it wasn't good. But the Netflix Daredevil was awesome. Nobody has bad things to say about the Netflix Daredevil. Nobody has bad things to say about the Netflix Daredevil. The Netflix Daredevil, they have amazing fight scenes, and they have amazing villains. Amazing villains, amazing fight scenes. His little sidekicks, I can take or leave. I can take or leave his sidekicks. But everything outside of his sidekicks, awesome. And the Punisher shows up in that. Like, that's where we first see the Punisher, in the Daredevil Netflix series. I haven't watched the Candyman reboot series. I had it on when I had Paramount Plus, but I don't have Paramount Plus anymore. So I missed my chance to watch it. I've never sat down and watched either of the Candyman movies. I'm just not a horror flick. I'm not a horror flick movie. But my sister told me it was good, so that was good enough for me. Oh, you're not gonna find it now because when um when Disney Plus became a thing, they took they took all of the Marvel shows off of Netflix. So Luke Cage, Jessica Jones, Daredevil, they all got snatched. So they're nowhere now. They're nowhere now. So you missed your chance to watch an excellent series. I mean, maybe you can find it on bootleg somewhere, but you can try to Captain, Jack Sparrow it. But you can try to Jack Sparrow it, but they didn't put it on Disney Plus. They didn't put any of those Netflix shows on Disney Plus, but they took them off Netflix. Once Disney Plus became a thing, they took all that stuff off Netflix. I don't know why they couldn't coexist, but they just decided they couldn't coexist. I wanted to watch that because I remember the fall of the House of because Edgar Allan Poe. I remember reading the fall of the House of Usher in high school, so I wanted to check this out and see. I just wanted to check it out because I just remember reading Edgar Allan Poe in high school, so I wanted to check out the series. Um, so I was gonna check that out sometime. I don't know when. I don't know when I was gonna have time. Maybe later on this week. Probably later on this week if I had time. But yeah. So okay. So yeah. Disney really needs to stop trying to recreate the wheel. What has worked is like this has worked all over television, and they're like, no, we're Marvel. We're gonna do what's good for us, and then be surprised when everything falls apart. No, don't do that. Don't do that. Stick with the formula. The formula works for a reason. The formula works for a reason. And they're gonna do. I can't believe they didn't write show bibles. I can't believe they was just sitting up here flying by the seat of their pants. They was just flying by the seat of their pants with no showrunners and no show bibles. And was surprised they got what they got. Okay, Marvel. But now you've learned. It was $150 million lesson. $150 million lesson. But you learned. Okay, enough with Daredevil and how they're gonna try again with Born Again. On to Loki and the second episode of season 2 of Loki. So we actually they actually catch up with Sophie. In order to catch up with Sophie, though, they catch up. It took me a long time to figure out who this dude was because I'm like, who is this hunter? How like who is this dude? It took me a long time to figure out that this hunter that they tracked down in the 70s was the guy who was working with that chick in episode 1. Completely did not connect that it was that guy. Completely did not realize it was that guy. I did not realize it was that guy until like yesterday. Yesterday I was like, oh, that's who that probably was. Now it makes sense. Because I was like, who is this guy who's supposed to believe? How do they know that he was chasing Sophie or Sylvie? Why do I keep calling her Sophie? Sylvie. And blah, 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 blah. So they go to the 70s. They track him down. Loki uses his magic. It's always great to see Loki use his magic because you forget he's the what is he the god of the trickster god or the god of whatever, the god of tricks. I forget what he's called, but the god of mischief. And he uses his magic, which he learned from his mama. And when they bring that hunter back to the TVA, and that man brought up his mama, I was like, first of all, you don't ever bring nobody's mama into the conversation. That's a low blow. And anything goes once you bring up somebody's mama. The moment he brought up Loki's mama, I was like, that's it. Loki gonna take your whole head off. And it's your whole fault. It's your whole fault for doing this. I had no idea who he was. I had no idea. I watched that whole episode not knowing who he was from beginning to end and didn't realize until yesterday that he was the guy. He was basically the guy from the first episode. So somehow in the midst of them searching for Sylvie, which they really weren't, he breaks off and starts a life in the 70s and becomes a superstar in the space of an episode. This is what really threw me off, was that he was already a star. So like, I guess they're saying he went. I don't know how he had enough time to go back, to have spent enough time on the sacred timeline, to have become a star, to have been in movies, but they're saying he's done that between episodes. He's gone back in enough time and he's had enough time to have done that, to been on the sacred timeline that long, to have created his own little life. You Googled it mid-show. Now, I remember who Renslayer was. I just thought she was dead. I did not realize Renslayer was still alive. I did not realize Renslayer was still out there. Now, they had her TemPad, apparently, but she's still out there somewhere. So Renslayer still is the big bad, because the person who I thought was going to be this season's villain was caught in one episode. They caught her after she did her little, setting up bombs to bomb all the different timelines. They caught her and they're putting her in jail. So she's pretty much one and done in an episode. And we really didn't get a chance to see Aunt Lysa do nothing but bomb a few timelines. So Renslayer and Kang are still the major villains. And Renslayer has been in on it with Kang since almost the beginning. She's been in on it. She knows the whole. Oh goodness. She knows the whole. She knows what's really going on. She knew that those 3 robots weren't really in charge of the TVA. She knew the whole backstory. She knew that who Kang was. So, so yeah, but yeah, definitely a terrible mistake to bring somebody's mama in. Don't ever bring somebody's mama up. That'll be your last mistake. Yeah. Yeah, because he had went out with her to he had went out with her to go search for Sylvie at the end of episode 1. Beginning of episode 2, he's on the separate timeline going to a movie premiere. He had abandoned his post. So between episode 1 and 2, so it's really in the space between episode 1 and 2 that he left his post, went down to the sacred timeline, and became a movie star. All that happened between episode 1 and 2. Whether they should go back and find their old lives or just stay with the TVA. I think I think everyone should get a chance to at least see what they were on the timeline before they were pruned. Um, I think everybody should get their own little backstory episode and should figure it out. Everybody should get a choice. Everybody should get that choice. I believe in it. I want to see it. Of course, Mobius. What's his name? Is his name Mobius or Morbius? Mobius. He. I'm mixing him up with that movie. That other movie is Morbius, isn't it? Mobius is afraid to find out because he's afraid that his life was good and he was yanked from something good. He's like, if it was something bad, he could live with being yanked from a bad life, but being yanked from a good life, it's kind of like going completely off subject, but kind of like people have been talking about, Kirk Franklin, Father's Day, and he grew up all his life thinking this one man was his father, and that man was kind of horrible and treating him bad and was kind of low key abusive, I think. And then he realizes that man wasn't his father. This other man was his father. And when he finds out this man not only was his father, he's been nearby his whole life, and he was nice. And his son used to play across the street from him, and you know, he could have had a much nicer life if he'd have known about this man being in his life. It's like that messed up his whole world. And this is real life stuff. So just imagine if Mobius had a Kirk Franklin moment. Like, just imagine that that could mess somebody up. Was low key talking facts when him and Mobius was going at it in the interrogation. Yeah, I agree. Mobius is afraid that it was a good life. hmm Did they ever say how they decide which people to yank? I don't know. I don't know. Basically, I don't know how they decide who's the variant and who and who's not. Because, like, I don't know how they decide who's the variant. It's very obvious that Loki's a variant because he's supposed to be dead. So he's very obviously a variant because he jumped out of the timeline before he died and into another space and time, which sort of saved him from dying, and now he's a variant. So that's, but everybody's not jumping along the timeline like that. So I don't know how other people are decided, that they're variants, like Sylvie being a girl Loki. Like, how was it decided that because she's a girl Loki, she's the variant? Like, who is Loki Prime? The Loki who died, is that Loki Prime? And then all the other Lokis on that timeline had to die, even though Loki Prime died eventually. So crazy. Yeah. I never thought about how they figured out how everybody else is a variant, how they decide everybody else is a variant. That's something else that's another reason why I want to see people's backstories, because I want to see how they're chosen as the variant, why they were chosen as variant, why they're the variant and not the prime person. I want to see that, and I want to see their reason for being. I want to see the TVA's reason for choosing them as the variant. Like, was it just that they came into the timeline second? And and how 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 are they allowed to, how is this even possible that they are a variant of somebody out there? How is this even possible? So these things, these are questions that I have, that I want to see explained, that probably they don't have explanations for because they don't have a show Bible. uh how do you feel about Sylvie's situation? She got a job, a little pickup truck now. They want her to leave it. Well, she's she is very comfortably in 1982 with a mullet. Um, I understand where she's coming from. She found herself a life of her own that she started, that she gets to live, that she gets to experience, that is hers. And I understand why she wants to hold on to that and why she wouldn't want to go back to the TVA, to people who have been trying to kill her since she was a baby, basically. She's been out on her own since she was a child, trying to survive because of them. And now they want her to come back and help them. If I was her, I wouldn't help them either. I would go and live my life in 1982. I wouldn't have a mullet, but I would be living my life. And, like, y'all just need to figure it out on your own. I wouldn't help them either. I wouldn't help them either. She had every right to turn her back on them. I mean, I feel sad over the way that she and Loki left things because, their whole relationship, blah, 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 blah. But I do understand where she's coming from. I understand where she's coming from. I understand where he's coming from. But he also did not have the experience that she had. He wasn't running from the TVA his entire life. He jumped out of the timeline onto another part of the timeline, got picked up, and then immediately they turned him so he can go chase her. So he's been turned into helping the TVA since he's been picked up, basically. He's been indoctrinated since he's been there. So they're coming from completely different experiences. I don't know. I don't know. But it was a lot. It was a lot. It's brand integration. Um, that's her job. So every time we see Sylvie, we haven't even seen her house. Every time we see her at that McDonald's. So that's just every time we're gonna see her at that McDonald's. They paid hundreds of thousands of dollars for that spot. Hundreds of thousands of dollars, I'd say. Maybe more. Maybe more. Hundreds of thousands of dollars at the very least. At the very least. Because not only did they have to write it into the script, but they have to write it into the script as a period, which means they had to create a period McDonald's, create period menu, period uniforms, period, everything had to be period. The trays, the bags, the things, the sandwiches came in, the hats, the everything had to be period. So that's a lot of money creating that in 1982, you know? So that's a lot of money. I'd say at the very least. I'd say at the very least. So, so they managed to stop them from bombing all of the the branches, but they bombed, I'd say, a good 90% of them. I think they only saved 10% of the branches. So I feel like that should have solved Obi's little dilemma with, you know, he with his little stabilization problem. That should have solved that because there was so many branches and it was becoming unstable and he had to do this and he had to use Miss Minute to get in and blah 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 blah. So I'm wondering if the fact that they bombed 90% of those branches, does his problem go away and do they no longer need to get in contact with Miss Minutes? So um That's something I have to wonder about next week. Will they still be trying to get in contact with Miss Minutes next week, even though you can't trust that hoe? Cartoon or not, you can't trust her. So I would be doing all that I could to not contact her and be like, look, um, you know, they bombed 90% of those branches. It should be more stable now. So that should have solved some problems. If if not, they should be able to get those hatch doors open. There should be there should be some way having 90% of those branches pruned should have solved or OB's problem in some way. That is true, but that is true. We don't know what that was, and we don't know why Sylvie was there. A full blown evil Miss Minutes. Lord, what can they do up against the cartoon? How do you fight a cartoon? I guess with magic. I guess Loki would have to fight her with his magic. Um but yeah, so that's where we are. They caught Miss Thang after bombing 90% of those branches and threw her in TVA jail. Um Loki and Sylvie, departed, not cheerfully, but very, very sadly. Um, we don't know what's up with OB and whether or not he still needs Miss Minutes to open up the hatches so he can stabilize the whatchamacallit, so he can keep the TVA from imploding or exploding or whatever. So that's the thing I want to see about next week. How does these branches being pruned affect what OB is doing? Uh, do they still need to get in contact with Miss Minutes? What's next now that they've pruned all those branches? Um, are they still? I guess they're still chasing Renslayer, and they're still chasing her. I wonder now, are they going to start trying to figure out, okay, where is Kang? Where's his variants? And when do they have to start worrying about them? Because that could be the reason why all hell is breaking loose in the future. Could be Kang. Could be Renslayer and Kang. Because like I said before, Jonathan Majors is supposed to be in this season. So it could be like last season and we only see him in the final episode, but he's supposed to be in this season. So and his and he who remains is supposedly the peaceful one. So the Kang that we are gonna see this season, not so peaceful. And we've already seen a Kang in the quantum in the Ant-Man film, so we've seen what they can be like when they're not peaceful. So just imagine that let loose in the TVA. So mm. Kind of hype for the rest of the season. I am definitely curious to see where this season will be going. I'm definitely curious to see how we reach the future. I'm definitely curious to see how they bring in Jonathan Majors. I'm definitely curious to see if they bring back Renslayer and how she fits in. Same with Miss Minutes. So they could be the little evil trinity, Miss Minutes, Renslayer, and Kane. But yeah, so that's till Thursday. Oh, what a show Bible is. Okay. So basically, when people create a show, when you create a show, basically, when you create a show, you write a pilot, which is like the first episode of the show. And then you will go on to write like a show Bible. In that show Bible, they will have character breakdowns. They will explain sometimes, depending on what type of show it is, they may have to explain the world of it. I have a couple of show Bibles. I think I have a Grey's Anatomy, or that may be on an old computer of mine. That may be on an old computer of mine. But I think I had a Grey's Anatomy show Bible. But they'll definitely have character breakdowns of major characters, sort of a breakdown of what's to be expected in each episode, and they also will have sort of uh, like an overview of what to expect in the first season. Like you may even have little synopses of like the first few episodes. Like, okay, episode 1 through 10, like, episode 1 is going to look like this, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 10. You may put in like little descriptions of what each episode, the first 10 episodes, is going to look like. And then you may give an overall description of what you want to happen in the season. And you may do that for up to 3 seasons. You won't do episode descriptions for the full 3 seasons. You'll just do season 2. This happens in season 2, and in season 3, this happens in season 3. So, like, just to know, so you know where the show is going. So, like, basically, a show Bible. It's basically almost like a much more broader outline of the entire show, so they can plan, okay, this is the character, these are the characters, these are the situations we're going to put the characters in, this is where it's heading towards, and this is the conflict that we want to create for these characters, and blah 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 blah. like um like show with serialized storylines, they'll put in the serialized storylines in the show Bible. They probably won't concentrate too much on one-off episodes, but the serialized storylines will be in the show Bible. Actually, eBay, you don't need to go on eBay for show Bibles. What you do, and they don't probably wouldn't have it. What you do is you would go to websites that would have scripts, that would have TV show scripts. Because I even have, okay, throwback from the 1980s cartoon He-Man series. I have that show Bible. And I forget how I got it, but I know I got it from one of these websites where I get my scripts from. But like some and so the Grey's Anatomy show Bible I got because I took that Shonda Rhimes master class. So I got that and probably some other scripts from my other shows through that. But I know I have some other show Bibles. So if I like one place, it's the IMSDB, and that's the Internet Movie Script Database. That's a place where you can get scripts from. IMSDB, and there is one called Download 70 Screenplays, screencraft.org. There's others. I know I have a bunch. Oh, that's a Google site. That's a dailyscript.com. So, but yeah, just websites like that where you can get like film scripts or TV scripts from. You might be able to find show Bibles there. Because I know I have a few show Bibles I have them saved like on old computers and flash drives and external hard drives. I have them everywhere. I have scripts saved everywhere. I find scripts and I just save them. Because it used to be like before everything became digital, it used to be you would have to actually go and get scripts. Like the WGA had has this, you could go to the WGA and read scripts there, but you can't take them with you. And I don't think they have a place for you to copy the scripts. So what you would do is you can take the scripts, you can read them, and if you got time, you could probably sit down there and type it out and copy it that way. But I had a friend who worked for an agency, a talent agency. And because the talent agencies, they had writers as clients, and writers always have to have scripts to read. So they had every script that ever was, so the clients could have, if their client needed to write a spec script for somebody in order to get a job, they'll send them some scripts. So we would constantly ask my friend, be like, hey, can you get us a script for this, and this? And he would write and he would make copies for us, and they would come back, and they wouldn't just be copies. They'll come back in a little cover page with the talent agency, little cover on it. I still got those somewhere too. The little talent page, the talent agency cover on them and everything. They were cute. And so so back then I would have to go out and get physical copies of scripts, and then once they started once you started getting digital scripts, I just started saving them. I just started saving them everywhere because it was a lot easier than having to get an actual physical script. Yeah. You can find them. They're out there. They're out there. Everything that had a script is out there. Yeah. Everything is out there. So, but as a writer, because always, not only did I have to write original stuff, but I had to write spec stuff. So I had to be able to write, like, I wrote once spec scripts. I wrote Criminal Minds because that was my show. I also wrote, what was that HBO show? Entourage. I wrote a spec script for Entourage. That was hilarious. Um, what else did I write a spec script for? Those are the only two I can remember right now off the top of my head. But I wrote a spec script for those shows, and so you have to look at the script, break down how they write their scripts and things like that, and then basically try to copy what they did with an original story, but write it with the same format. So, yes. Okay, so Wednesday, more, um, I'm about to say alienation. Alienation was another show. Alienation was another show from the 90s. No. X Files. I think I watched episodes, yes, I watched episodes 13 through 18. I've been watching 6 episodes at a time because that's how much, how long I'm able to watch it before it gets dark. Because I'm not watching it when it gets dark. 'Cause I promise you, those shows it's scary when it gets dark. But I can take it in the light. I can take it in the light. Okay, so Wednesday more X Files, and Friday is another Game of Thrones video. So last week was I ranked the season premieres of Game of Thrones. So this Friday is going to be another Game of Thrones video. So we're doing back to back Game of Thrones. And then we'll be back next Monday with another talking about Loki yet again. So that is all. Okay. So yeah. But in the meantime, thanks for watching.